Richard, when are you going to get that little black midget sorted out? And while you get yourself all settled down with a nice warm cup of beer or something, check you're subscribed. If you're not, why not? Click the bell, lets you know when new features are coming up. Fancy contacting me? Then it's churchhouseclassics, and that's all one word, at gmail.com. And if you fancy supporting the channel, then there's a PayPal me link scrolling down here. All donations are gratefully received. Thank you very much. Enjoy! Yes, a box of great joy and excitement has arrived in the workshop. Now, this has all come from Distributor Doctor, so these are all the parts I'm talking about. Interesting, we've gone back to red again, but we're stamped, we're embossed with DD, which is good. Whoops, there goes the bag. Now, in this order, we have a set of new HT leads. These look a bit nicer than the HT leads. Oops, it came off the car. I suspect we're going to work a bit better with these ones than those ones. A set of HT leads, set of points, again embossed DD. I love that. Probably a condenser. I'd like to think it's a condenser. It is a condenser, and it's got the correct wiring on it as well. DD, Distributor Doctor. Very nice. And a cap, which is nicely secured inside a box here. Go over there. Oh yes, it even feels nicer. Nicely done. Right, so I'm just going to build this distributor up. There's nothing particularly nasty about building a distributor up, folks. I've gone through the most difficult parts here and making sure that the base plate and the mechanical advance are all working. So I'm just going to assemble the points and everything on here, bench test it, put it in the car, and be done, which would be nice, won't it? Now that wants to go that way round, because then we've got the wiring for the low tension comes out through that hole there. Right, I'm going to crack on with that. I'm going to put the radio on. Don't need to video it. It's fairly basic spannering. But I do like a nice box of new bits, especially when they come from a supplier that I trust. And when you compare the two parts, I mean, visually they look very, very, very similar. But I suspect what will happen is that, as we've already done, if we take the pin off there and we take that shaft off there, is that going to come off there? Normally these come off here. No, it's not going to come off there. You can see here there the state of the points. I know these are brand spanking new, but I wouldn't expect this to happen with these. Very nice. Very nice indeed. Right, they're going to go on. Condenser's going to go on. And we'll get this car running. Distributor back in. I thought before I did anything further with putting plugs and so forth back in, I'd just check compressions, because I've never actually had this engine cranking over, checking compressions and so forth. The engine has run prior to this. And also I wanted to crank the engine and see if the fuel system is priming. So, compression ratios, where's my book? Here's my book over here. Oh dear, number 2's right down. So it's not down horrifically so, and it could just well be running it nicely. It's going to resolve the situation. It could also be that the tappet clearances are way out. So I'm going to take the rocket cover off and sort that out. Drop your pen. The other thing I've got a problem with, and this wasn't an issue before, but it is now, the starter solenoid's packed up. So luckily on these things, see if we can get this under here. On these things, it's just here in front of the heater. Now it's possible when I was doing the heater and painting the bulkhead I've jogged something, so I'm going to take it off and double check it once it's all removed from the car. I didn't bother disconnecting any of the wiring, but what I have noticed is the starter solenoid connection down here. Well, it's very wobbly. See that? I think that's fucked. So it could just be the act of removing it and putting it back on again has caused a problem. These things, I don't know. I'd rather have it, so it's able to start reliably than anything else. So I'm going to take that off, see if I can't get another one, which I should be able to. Ideally not a Koki 5000. Ideally it'd be a nice one. And then Radiator, I just ordered a new one. I tried resoldering this thing. It's always going to be a 25 to 30 year old radiator. It's never going to be any better than that. And I just thought, you know what, for the cost of the money, which is not that much more than about an hour of my labour, then let's just replace it and be done with it. It makes sense. And then other things. So while the battery's been connected, I've been testing various electrics out. Face. There's lots of very lethargic and lazy electrics, but I really need the engine to be running. I've got good voltage in the battery. Really need the engine running to be checking indicators, but horns aren't working. Horns, well, they're down there. So I shall get the power probe out in a second and I shall test the horn function. They're kind of exposed where they are. We'll see if we can't get the horns working, because that would be quite nice, wouldn't it, really? Ah, dear, 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 dear. And then underneath, let's get the torch. We'll shuffle off underneath. Torch. Ah. Right, stain we go. So I've been cleaning up a lot of the rot here. 99.99999% of it is just surface rust. So for instance over here, looking at the floor pan, you can see lots of surface rust, but you can also see lots of original paint. There's no holes. So I'm going to be really just cleaning it up, tidying up, and getting ready to put a stone guard over the top of this. What I might do is, once the engine's running, take it up to go and see Rod, and he can pressure wash the underside off for me. There is a reasonable amount of crap under here, but like I say, most of it is surface rust. I think I've got other things I need to be worrying about right now, but I do want to get this so that it's solid underneath, and that it's all in good order and going to be reliable. But it's a very clean body shell for a midget. Bearing in mind this car is 1979, 1980. It's probably made in 1979, right at the end of production, and we're 2025 now. There are areas where we've had some welding done. We certainly could do with a bit of welding up there. That bit's kind of gone, but that's not a huge issue up there. I don't think that's in any way structural. The rest of there's a piece there. Look at that. Overall, though, it's pretty solid. Now the car is going to be coming back to me probably later on this year to sort out all the bodywork, get it looking very nice. Right, engine next. I think it's getting distracted with other stuff, so I'm going to check valve clearances, rule of 9, feeler gauge, cranking engine over, blah de blah de blah. Nothing particularly difficult to do here, and obviously without the radiator in place, just makes life so much bloody easier. With plugs out, it makes life so much bloody easier too. Yes. Flipping thing. Right, we've got there. Now, I've been trying to pull this steering wheel off. I've tried all the usual methods for doing this. Knees behind the wheel, leave the nut in place, folks. Rock the wheel backwards and forwards, not a bloody chance. I made up a kind of a puller, very similar to the one that I used on the back axle down here. Now that just bent, not a flipping chance. Throw that down there. So then I used the the fork out of my bearing puller. That chappy. And lobbed myself a couple of 5/16 UNF bolts in there. Got them nice and level. And then, with the dugger gun, managed to get the steering wheel off. That has been ridiculously tight, and it won't come off because the nut's still on there, Richard, you nut. Right, okay, so I can now get this thing off. Let's just take that off there. There's always a way. You can always do it one way or another. Nut can come off now. And the reason I wanted the steering wheel off was because I pulled... It's got lube in it, mind you, I have been lubing it. Oh, bloody thing. Anyway, the reason that was off is because I've had this control off because I was getting very, very, very inconsistent settings off this. Then I wanted to get to the flasher units. There's one up there and there's one over there. So I had to take the tachometer out. I pretty much got it all working now. So I need a pair of flasher units. Neither of them's working properly. But in order to get this column control back in and back together, I needed the steering wheel off. I've never had a steering wheel give me bother like this one before. Anyway, so the puller arm screwed these bolts, these UNF bolts, in as far as they would go into the steering wheel boss. I didn't want to damage anything. And then, yeah, like I say, it came off in my hand. Right, that's off. Now, we have got... I was even considering using the MAP gas, but no, I kind of went against that idea purely because of the critical safety nature of the steering column. Let's not put heat in there when we don't need it in there. Now, I did manage to get the horns working, which is good news. So they left the wiring as it was, and the fault was actually in the end of the column control here. So you get a purple feed comes up from the fused top fuse, the fuse that's got the brown wire, battery controlled, non-ignition controlled wire, comes up to the up to this. So there's a fused feed, and then there's a purple and black wire that goes from this through a couple of connectors all the way back down to the front of the car. Horns work. And that was the main reason for taking all this apart. And then I realised that the indicators were not working properly. So the indicators would go on but not flash, and the hazard lights were flashing at about 240 flashes a minute, which is no use whatsoever. So I've managed to find one of the old school flasher units which works, but I'm going to do away with that and go solid state. These old school flasher units, you just don't know what sort of quality. Let's not put the MAP gas in front of the blower. MAP gas can go down there. The old school flasher units, and this is the one that was on the car because I ripped it apart because I wanted to see what was going on inside it. They're easy enough to get the cover off these, and effectively the wire should go to that plate there, and the idea is this thing kind of does that. There's a line across the middle there, and there's a plate underneath it, and it just breaks and makes the circuit, and then eventually it starts going tick ding tick ding tick ding tick ding tick ding tick ding. But that one, as you can see, is very poor indeed. I'm not going to bother repairing it. It can go in there. Solid state 3-pin flasher units are the way to go forwards. So you still got your B, you still got your L terminals, but subsequently what you will need to do is you have an earth terminal as well, but that's easy enough to make up. So, right, steering wheel's off, thank goodness. Now, next I'm going to do tappets on this. I haven't managed to get around to that yet. I just want to double check them really more than anything else while it's all apart. And distributors back together, plugs can go in, and yeah, radiator hopefully tomorrow. And that can all go back in. We can drop it down to the ground and test it. It's a pretty grubby job now. This is driver's side. Most of that shiny black you can see there is top coat. we're obviously on the floor pan, and then the centre section, and I've just done pretty much all of the passenger side footwell, front to back, no rust, just surface rust. It'll get a stone guard. It's a messy business, I'll tell you now. Oh look, there's a exhaust bracket there. I wonder what that's doing like that. That's weird. Just wants a bolt through, doesn't it? Holds the exhaust up. Yes, and over here, pull. That's what I'm taking off. It's all that white stuff, which is original underseal that's impregnated with dust and Spanish sand. And then in areas like this, you can see that there is surface rust. But a very, very strong body shell. Right, deserves looking after, this thing does. It's a nice car. Oh yes. Well, we're getting there. So new solenoid is fitted. Works beautifully. Well, it didn't work initially. And then it did work. So I used, when you're diagnosing these problems, let me get down here. When you're diagnosing these problems, the first thing you can really do is put a jumper between that pin, and the starter should turn. If the starter turns, then there's nothing wrong with the starter. Then, if you apply 12 volts to the white and red terminal over here, and the starter turns, you know the solenoid's working. That was the problem I had with the other one. The other one was not working. So then it wasn't turning on the key. So we'll go round to the cockpit of the little black midget, and underneath here, on the back of the ignition switch, you can't see a fucking thing. Then on the back of the ignition switch over here, the white and red wire was very loose on its terminal. In fact, all of the wires were loose on the terminals. So I crimped them all a little bit tighter, and they all appear to be working now. Oh look, there's that as well. I was looking for that. Another one of those. Yeah, so now, when we turn the ignition on, oh, and the oil light wasn't working either. So I have cleaned the terminal up, re-crimped it, popped it back onto the side of the engine. Now the oil terminal also works. Now there's no ignition components on the car, so it ain't going to start. But you can see the oil light goes out, and the car cranks beautifully. And here is a brand spanking new radiator. Metal radiator for the Midget 1500, made by this company. Q Parts, engineered for your classic radiator, that part number. Came from MG Owners Club Spares. Now, I'm not a member of the club. I just went onto their website, ordered the part, and it came through next day. Fantastic service. Right, so we get this beauty started. So I know there's fuel in the carbs. I know that the ignition is set up roughly right. Leads and everything are on. I don't know if I've got a spark, because I haven't tested for that, but let's give it a go. Let's connect the battery. Oh, that shuts nicely. Right, now, battery. Go on there. Lighting courtesy of James, the Royal Range Rover. Oh my goodness. This clamp is fucking useless. We might have to get a bloody clamp on here. Now, I've been topping up the cooling system, so I couldn't tell you if the cooling system is going to be working. Right, let's pull a bit of choke out. That's fucking beautiful. Pardon me, swearing. No need to swear there at all, Richard. Yes, there is. Oh my goodness. Right, okay. I I'm not going to get too running up too much because I want to do that with the doors open, and that will happen tomorrow. But the fact it started up nicely, ran sweetly enough, no misfire, suggests we're almost ready for a tune-up. Baseline carburetors, well, they were enough to start it. I obviously didn't rev it up, but I need to get underneath it now and finish off scraping off that underseal, which is why it's still up in the air. And then first thing tomorrow morning, I'm going to spray Stone Guard all over the place. Time to tune the wee beastie up. So I've pretty much finished on the underside. I coated the underside with a Stone Guard, treated any of the surface rust, painted the rest of the Stone Guard. That's all done. Interior's all back together again. Look, I've even got the interior light working. Woohoo! So that all works. Going to warm the car up properly, and then I'm going to tune the carburetors. At the moment I've got it only on a baseline setting, which is why the revs are a little bit on the high side, but I want it to warm up. So it's actually running without any choke at the moment. And steering wheel's just off purely because it helps me get in and out of the car easier. These carburetors, they're not horrific tune up. I would just go with the factory option. With the workshop manual option, it's fairly straightforward. Because we are a 1979 car, I'm going to need to set the emissions to 4.5 or below percent CO, carbon monoxide. But yes, I'm going to give it a wash. MOT later this week. It's looking mighty fine. Now the interior is all going back together again, it starts looking like a car. The ignition is beautiful. I set the ignition timing up, the strobe is still in there, but set the ignition timing up, that's all bob on. But I really want the carbs tuning and the engine revs to come down before I fine tune the ignition timing, but I can't see that taking too long. Just needs to warm up. What I might do actually is just, now I've got the cooling system filled up, I might just pop the top on the cooling system and just check for coolant leaks. Let's just turn off for a second. We find the cap, which I think I've got in the box over here. The smell of underseal underneath the car is not pleasant. Right, I'm going to have to just... The problem with this is, because as the water's circulating around the engine, it is, there's a lot of gloop in this engine. I think what we'll do is, I mean, it's got enough antifreeze in it at the moment, but I think later on this year when the car comes back for bodywork and so forth, I'm going to back flush this engine through, put something in there to flush all of the crap out of it. Clearly it's run for some time without any antifreeze in it, because it just caused a corrosion in there. So yeah, put this little cap back on, see if we can get the system to pressurise at the same time as we're doing this other work. Just go for the idle screws. Gone sweet. I bet it's not going to accelerate. I think it's a bit on the lean side at the moment. Both pistons are rising though. So we'll richen that up by a couple of turns, and then when we got it so it's behaving itself, then I can get the tuning done up. See, the temperature gauge is starting to creep up now. We're getting up to normal temperature. I'll tell you one thing that's definitely going to help. These dashpots are empty. You silly arse. I need to fill those up. So again, switch off. Dashpot's filled up. Explains why it's just bogging a little bit. Well, it's a very sunny day for the wee black midget. It's a very sunny day because it has just passed its MOT. Oh yes, fantastic. I didn't doubt it for a second. So what have we got? Oil leak, not excessive front. It's underneath the bell housing. Oil leak, but not excessive, it's got there. So he's listed it twice. Suspension component corroded but not seriously weak, and various front suspension components. Well, kind of needs to be taken apart and painted, but it's an old car. Exhaust mounting defective, that's a me fault, that is. I pointed it out earlier on in this video as well and didn't put a bolt back in it. Integral body structure is corroded, but not significantly, near side sill. So what is observed here is corrosion around there and there, and it's the proximity to the jacking point that he was primarily concerned about, but appreciated that the rust is on the arch side of the sill. So it was an advisory rather than anything else. And then there's wheel bearing plate, very slight wheel bearing plate near side front. But other than that, and what do we get on emissions? Because it goes like a rocket. Braking force. I don't know, I can't read oh, it's passed. So we've got pass on braking, which is good because I've overhauled it all, and we've gone from one brake working to all of the brakes working. And then emissions, oh look at that, it's sailed through. Absolutely sailed through. So it's almost, I could probably give it another flat of a turn on the carburetors just to richen it up a little bit, because CO 1.95 is a little bit on the lean side for one of these little babies. I set it about 2.5% because it was running and it was driving at 2.5%, but my meter is very slightly different to the meter up at the MOT test station. But the wee midget, it passed an MOT, yay! Happy days. Give it a wash now.